Welcome to Sales Velocity TV, where we pull back the curtain on how the top businesses in the world sell more with less resistance. Bringing over 50 plus years of combined sales experience and over 100 million in revenue generated, please welcome the hosts of Sales Velocity TV and two incredibly entertaining gentlemen, Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson.
Aaron, what is up, my man? We're talking about the Deion phenomenon today, and I know this is kind of a sports topic here today, but the parallels to business and sports and politics is key, right? So I just want to brace the viewers here. This isn't a college football conversation, although there's a really fascinating phenomenon happening. It's this Deion Sanders effect at the University of Colorado, and it gave us the idea to do a show on the power of personality in both business, politics, and in sports. And we're seeing it in sports, and we'll use the sports example, but we'll have some great lessons here on how to parlay that into business or politics. We're seeing so much news today on personality in business. There's always some new icon popping up. We're seeing who's prevailing in this political race to 2024, and it's the personalities that are winning out. And boy, oh boy, what a perfect example in college football of not only a big personality, but also a guy getting great results, maybe slightly because of the personality. I think it's had an interesting effect on the psyche of the team. But we'll look at it. So it's the Deion Sanders effect at Colorado, and it's going to be a fun one today.
I got to start with today's episode that I've had this hat sitting on my shelf for 4 weeks, waiting for the right opportunity to break it out. For our listeners, it just says GOAT, which is short for greatest of all time. And Deion Sanders, defensively, especially talking about cornerbacks, no question, greatest of all time.
Well, you could argue maybe greatest all-around, most complete athlete of all time as well, because if you look
can
at
make a lot of debates. When they start talking about greatest athletes of all time, or even just greatest football athletes of all time.
The physical
specimen.
The physical talent of Deion Sanders, from the running as a receiver and as a cornerback and as a punt returner, and then getting on a plane and playing for the Atlanta Falcons 2 days later and hitting home runs and stealing bases, all in a weekend. I'll never forget this growing up. I think it was in college at the time when this was going on. Bo Jackson comes to mind also. Those are the two that come to mind for me as all-around most complete athletes. But Deion was the personality, just a guy that just lights up a room. You love him. If you're watching what he's doing at Colorado, I love it, because I love that. I just love the personality he's bringing to the table. I love the cockiness to a degree, the arrogance to a degree. It's a fine line. We'll talk about it here today between confidence and arrogance, and you sometimes have to cross that line to get the attention you need, and also to get the respect of the team and the teams you're competing against as well. There's a whole lot going on, and some people hate him because of it. He's had some bouts with coaches on other teams who don't love his style, but man, the team is responding, and that's the key.
Well, and here's the thing, and you made an important point there. Some people love him, some people hate him. If you have a big personality, you're going to have lovers and you're going to have haters. In fact, I would go an extra step further and say if you don't have any haters, you're probably not being loud enough.
Well, and you're not having much impact either.
And you're not going to have much impact, right? I mean, you can look at that in politics, you can look at that in business, you can look at that in sports. If you don't have lovers and haters, you're probably not loud enough, and you're probably not having a big enough impact. So let's start with Deion Sanders. Let's just give a brief background on Deion Sanders, right? He was an NFL, Pro Bowl, highest level, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He played for the Atlanta Falcons in baseball. He crushed so many different records, Pro Bowls, All-Star games. You played 2 sports at one time. He made millions and millions of dollars. Net worth as of today, based on interweb searches, $280 million. So he doesn't.
Right? Wow, I wouldn't.
He doesn't need money.
I would not have thought that.
Does not need money at this point. So he's got some kids now that are playing football, really talented athletes, and he decided, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago now, to start coaching. And he started off at Jackson State. Now, if you're asking yourself, who the hell is Jackson State? Well, that's what everybody said. Where the hell is Jackson State? Really, to be honest with you, it's where his kids played, so he wanted to go have an impact on the development of his kids. And on top of that, no one else would give him a coaching job because he's Deion Sanders. What does he know about coaching? He's just a loudmouth personality football player, right? So he needed a spot to get his start. He wanted to oversee his kids' development. And here's what happened. The moment that he got to Jackson State and started being his normal self, all the media started paying attention. All the sponsors started paying attention. All the NFL started paying attention. In fact, the first player ever drafted in the NFL from Jackson State came from when he was in college. Because what ends up happening when you've got these big personalities in business, in college, in politics, is it starts to attract the talent that wants to be around that and go for the ride. And this is a really key element of this Deion Sanders effect right now that cannot be overlooked in any element of your life. Jackson State's recruiting class went straight vertical.
Yep.
Because people wanted to come and play for Deion Sanders. They wanted to be around the shine. The what's the right term? The boosters, the support, the whatever for Jackson State, through the roof. Facilities starting to go through the roof, programs through the roof. And they absolutely crushed it while he was there. And everyone was waiting to see if a Div 1 college would give him a shot or if he was too outspoken. And all of a sudden, Colorado. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I haven't heard of Colorado in a long time. Colorado Buffaloes, they stepped up and made him the third highest paid coach in college football to get him into their program. They saw the media that was going on and the results at Jackson State. And they said, well, our team won one game last year. What do we got to lose? Worst case scenario, everybody will tune into our college, which helps enrollment for the college, recruitment, students, media time, money, all of it. They said, let's gamble on this guy. And you're seeing the Deion Sanders effect just pile up and pile up and pile up. And now Colorado University is the most talked about college. They're more talked about than Alabama, USC, who's on a run this year.
Right now, at least.
Auburn,
as
for
this
now.
is just getting underway. I think they're 2-1 and 3-1 at the time of the show. They had a big loss to Oregon, but they came out of the gates beating the team who was number 2 in the nation last year, who played in the national championship. They beat Nebraska, who they weren't that great, but beating TCU in week 1 with a new team on the road who played in the national championship last year was a massive statement.
Absolutely.
A massive statement, but you're right. Great backstory there, by the way, buddy. I think you did your homework on the show today. Or did you just know this, or did you know we were?
Most of it I knew because I'm following it. But let's talk about why we like him and why people maybe don't like him and how it's impacting this college from a business perspective. And I do want to talk about the speech. I don't know if you know the speech I'm talking about on day 1 at the college, but if you don't, I want to talk about the speech.
I think this bit, without getting into it now, the speech where he basically invited everybody to quit and leave, right? That one?
So,
with like the guys who were there already, here's how things are going to go. If this isn't how you want it to go, then I'm inviting you to leave now. So did you catch the 60 Minutes interview?
I didn't.
So he did a sit-down interview in 60 Minutes, and CBS is the ultimate snowflake channel. So they were trying to bait him, and they were trying to make him be mean. Did you think that was the right thing to say to these poor kids? Do you think they were upset? Deion's like, what are you talking about? We're living in a world right now he said something like, we're living in a world right now that's so soft. These kids needed to hear this. And he's like, frankly, we're living in a world right now of such lies that I'm here to deliver the truth. And the guy was like, the guy on CBS, Aaron, was like, he folded like a deck of liberal snowflake cards. It was hilarious to watch. It was the first and last time I watched anything on that channel again, but I wanted to see the Deion interview, and I wanted to get a different perspective because I knew they wouldn't make it tough for him. I knew they would go light. I knew they would just be soft because they're a soft channel. But he was amazing. He didn't. Let's
talk about the speech, because I think that's what
yes,
got him the most attention in the last 6 months. So he basically showed up to Colorado, and he brought in the whole team. And he said, here's the reality, guys. We have this thing now called the transfer portal, which is kind of like free agency for college football. Yes. And he said, we won one game last year. So what that tells me is the majority of you are not good enough to play here. It's just math. Where we want to go and our goals, which is to win a championship within the next 3 years, if you've got a 1-win team, you're probably not good enough to be here and part of our future plan. So here's what I'm going to recommend to you. Go put yourself in the transfer portal, go find a new team or quit, whatever you want to do. And if some of you decide that you're going to stay, we are going to work you so hard. We are going to push you so hard. Our expectations are going to be so high that you're probably going to quit anyway. We're going to try and make you quit. And after that speech, 50 of the players walked out the door. Gone.
Was it that many?
50 is the number that I've read.
Wow. So
they just said, I'm out.
Could you imagine being a Division I college football player and getting challenged like I would have been invigorated, motivated, and inspired by that as a 1 in 10 team. I would have been like, my goodness, I cannot wait to take it to the next level. That's what I would have been and I played football in college. So that would have been a welcoming message for me at least.
And what he was trying to do was he was trying to find the people like you that were in that room, the people like me who would have said, what a breath of fresh air.
Wow.
I'm so excited that there's someone here who wants to change the culture and take us to the next level because I'm tired of losing. We need to have a winner in here and a winner mentality. And I'm going to bust my butt and I might not make it, but man, I'm going to give everything I got to see if I can make this team.
And that's why you're playing D1 football in the first place. This isn't an easy thing to do. I played Division I AA football and it was a full-time job. And it absolutely chewed me up and spit me out. It was a lot of work. It was year-round. There was no life. There was no going out. I never had a social life in high school or college. Never did. Never, ever did, except my senior year because I got hurt and I didn't play my senior year. So but I understand that, and I understand new coaches coming in, and I just can't imagine the amount of kids. I could see 1 or 2, maybe 4 or 5 kids get up and leave, but dozens?
Dozens.
Jeez, that's a statistic I didn't know, but I'm glad you brought up.
And he said when they walked out the door and he got challenged on it by parents, by media, whatever.
That's the 60 Minutes thing again, Aaron.
Perfect. Exactly what I was hoping for.
We're on schedule.
Right. And the other interesting thing that he said, which he said the college football landscape has changed because now that the transfer portal is in place, he said we're not even really recruiting high school kids anymore. Because now that we can go and look at all of these kids that have had a year under their belt, 2 years under their belt, we already know they've adapted to the college life. We can see their grades. We can see their results. I'd way rather pull a team together that's been in a year or two and we know what we're dealing with rather than dealing with a bunch of high school recruits that still can't, figure out their nose from their rear end.
Big transition.
Big transition. So I'm going to build a team through the transfer portal that wants to be here. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to set this expectation so high that either you're going to be on that team with me and that plan with me, or you're not going to come here. And that's how you change a culture.
Now, yeah, I think you're right about that. That's a culture play. And I think a lot about what we're going to talk about today is, of course, personality. You have to have a big personality to be able to stand in front of a room and do that. Most guys would have been too afraid to lose that much of the team to do that, Aaron, which is why that's impressive. Now, I think a lot of that comes from because he was an NFL player. The guys who get to the NFL are like, in my view, the guys that are in the military at the highest level. I mean, they are just warriors, right? Yep. And that takes a level of mental toughness, and it takes a level of tough-skinnedness that most don't have. You going into a new school with a big contract, and you're inviting the players to leave, which leaves a huge hole and a void for you as a coach. That was a big risk that he took because building it from scratch, well, maybe not to the point of what you're making, but for most coaches it would have been because at least you have some consistency if you kept, I don't know, a couple starters or 5 or 6 guys on each side of the line, right? At least there's some continuity there.
I agree with you
he took a chance of, okay, so there's not going to be any continuity. There's not going to be anybody who's been here and can maybe show the other players around. We're all going to be new.
Yep.
And on top of how tough it is to be all new, and it's tough to gel as a football team right away, you're also at a new school, and there's also a new coach, and you're also around all new players. So there is no continuity at that point. So he took a gamble from the standpoint of leaving some people in place who maybe could have been a good tour guide.
Absolutely. You're right. It was a gamble. It was a gamble and it wasn't. And you and I talked about this.
I agree totally.
You and I have talked about this before, that we own multiple businesses. One of the businesses that I own, I often say I hire based on character, not skill set. Right? Obviously, you have to have a basic level of skill set. If you're going to play Div 1 football, you have a basic level of skill set.
You can't
right?
suck, yeah.
Yeah, you can't suck. So I don't hire people that suck, but I value character much more than I value skill, because I can teach skills. I can't teach character. You either have it or you don't. And so what he did is he said, the character flaws in this room are the problem. You're not here to win. You're not here to do what it takes. You don't have that winning mentality. I'm going to give you a chance to show me that you could. But if you don't have it and you can just admit it and be honest with yourself right now, just leave. So they left. And he cleared out the people that were not the character that he was looking for to develop the culture to become a bunch of winners.
That's a great point. And it's a great thing that he did. And again, he learned it because he played at such a high level, right? You know who else is notorious for doing this is Bill Belichick for as long as he has. I mean, if you guys, and we talked before about the Brady interview that was on one of Aaron and I's favorite podcasts is the Valuetainment podcast, which you recommended to me, which I love. Patrick Bet-David, they've been doing that show for years. I mean, nobody gets Tom Brady. So he gets Tom Brady at his event. You want to talk about the GOAT with your hat? That's the real GOAT. He gets Tom Brady at his event, 3,000 people. God only knows what that cost. And they did a 2-hour interview from stage, Aaron. It wasn't like give him a microphone and have him stand there and speak. They did it podcast style, which was interesting. But that was, I mean, the things that Brady said and about Belichick, to your point, Deion, Belichick, Nick Saban is another one that comes to mind. These guys are known for just literally fixing people. They would bring guys who were deadbeats that Belichick would bring. Randy Moss comes to mind.
Randy Moss jumps.
He brings guys in that are like they're known problems. He tried it with Antonio Brown. He lasted 2 games.
Yeah,
and he has no qualms. Fastest guy on the team. Probably the best potential of any receiver. You want to bring the head games in, and you want to bring the drama from off field in. You're on the field on a Sunday. You're fired on a Wednesday. That's how it went down, right? And Deion's the same way. He won't put up with anything. I know he won't.
No, he won't.
I know he won't.
And what's interesting is that the division of opinion on Deion right now is because he's so loud and he's so brash and he's so brutally honest. And he has a couple of great quotes. One of them is something along the lines of, "Don't let my confidence impact your insecurity."
That was it. I clipped that video. It's on my social page. It was soon as I just fell to the floor laughing. It was one of those moments where I was like, did he just say that? That was incredible.
And here's the thing with Deion, and here's the thing with most really successful entrepreneurs, athletes, influencers, is they get the attention that they want because they're bold and they're confident. And when you're bold and you're confident and you back it up, you establish yourself as the leader to follow, the magnet to everybody else. I remember Andy Andrews once said, the world is so starved for leadership that you could light yourself on fire and walk down the street and people would follow you just to watch you burn.
And I think that's more so true today in 2023 than ever before. People are so fragmented. They don't know who to follow. They don't know who to believe.
And they're so scared to be They're so scared to be themselves and be out there and be bold because everyone's trying to cancel everybody and this and that and whatever.
That is you're right about is that if you can't be yourself and speak your mind, I mean, what's the point? Right?
And people want it because there's a void in it right now. And
even if they say they don't want it, Aaron, deep down inside, they're happy when people speak out because maybe they're too insecure to do it. So
absolutely,
Deion is a voice for many in that example.
Yeah, and he's also a voice for a lot of he really is. Like if you look him up on Google right now, they're saying he's the voice for African American football fans because they're looking at him saying, look at this guy. He's confident. He's brash. He's outspoken. He's intelligent. He's getting results. I can see I want to be like him. I can see myself in him. So from a marketing play, Colorado's fan base just went like kaboom because of it. Their sales are off the charts. Here's the big thing. Their recruiting class now. Yeah. Everybody wants to come and play for Deion. So this year is going to be good, but watch what happens next year or the year after because these top tier athletes are now not just looking at Bama, Auburn.
Colorado's in the conversation now.
Colorado's right in the top.
And God forbid they have a winning season. I think they're 2 or 3-1 right now. God forbid and they're ranked. I mean, they're like 18 or 17. That's impressive. If you're top 20, top 25.
That's a one-win team from last year.
So to get that ranking, well, listen, beating TCU obviously took them from non-ranked to like 20. Right? So if they keep winning and they have a tough schedule, they're in the conversation, like you said, from a recruiting standpoint, and that's 2, 3, 4 years out. It's amazing what he's doing. I don't know if have you watched any of the games? Have you watched the way he carries himself and the team behind him when he takes the field? And have you seen what they've done with the uniforms? I mean, there's more at it psychologically than just Deion. It's the Deion effect, but the Deion effect creates creativity. And
it's all about creating that winning culture, right? And when you create that winning culture, you have you have your haters, you have your people who love you, but let's talk about his actual ability to coach a team. Right? Nick Saban last week said, just to be clear, Deion Sanders is a very, very good coach. That's Nick Saban.
He didn't have to say anything.
He didn't have to, certainly didn't have to say anything. And Nick Saban is probably the GOAT of college football coaches.
By far.
But he's telling people this isn't just a circus. This isn't just a psychological makeover of the culture.
Because out of the gates, it could have looked like a circus. And it might have for some.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, no. He can also coach, right? And he's got all of these. I want to read you some of his best quotes. Can I read you a couple of some of his best quotes?
Of course.
One of them, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. If you play good, they pay good.
He said that in his whole pro career. He was the guy who was always looking the most dialed in when he played for the Falcons and the 49ers and the Cowboys. He was really much into the look, which to the point I made earlier, Aaron, a second ago, is the look that the team has taken on now, I've noticed.
That's why I brought it up.
They've changed the uniforms for every game. They came out of the gates in full white. They've never had white helmets. Game 2, gold helmets. Game 3, black helmets. I've never seen a team change the color and total scheme of their helmets in 3 straight weeks. I mean, imagine what that must have cost to do that. They looked so good, though. Everything was Deion so sharp and dialed in. I loved the white in week 1, by the way. I don't know if you saw the all white.
I did see it. It was amazing.
I mean, white helmets, Colorado, that's never happened.
But you have to don't just take this as this is a Deion Sanders thing, because this is a business show, right? There's always an underlying business element to everything we talk about. I just went to an event, Andrew, and I was talking to you about it before the show, where there were a couple of, competitors of mine, and they show up looking the way they show up. I show up the way looking I show up, right? I'm fit, I'm dressed well, I'm confident, shoulders are back, chest is high. I'm a magnet to people who are looking for success, and they're a repellent to people looking for success because I know how to stand out and I know what they're looking for. In business or as an athlete, Deion always wanted to stand out. He always wanted the camera. He said, if I look good, I feel good. If I feel good, I play good. And if I play good, they pay good, right? This is a topic that matters in business, in politics, in sports. When you're talking to your kids, don't walk out the door looking like a slob.
Yep. Pride.
Have some pride. Pride creates confidence. Confidence attracts other people. Attracting other people creates good things, right? So there's some really concrete stuff to what he says. Another one that I have here is if your dream isn't bigger than you, then there's a problem with your dream, right? So it can't just be about you. It has to be about something more than you. So that's something that he's putting into the team culture, right?
He does a lot of personal development, which is important. He's a motivator. Man. And the best coaches, I mean, I've actually seen coaches that are not like this, and they just coach in a different way. Saban and Belichick come to mind. They're very serious, down to earth, just get to the point guys. My coach in college was like that too. So this doesn't always have to be the case with coaching, but boy, oh boy, if it is, you're adding an element that most don't have, which is that personal development, really getting into your head. The way he took on like you said in the beginning, Aaron, the way he took on the existing players. I mean, if that wasn't the ultimate challenge and the ultimate test of your personal development and your fortitude, right, and how much it means to you, that I can't think of what could have been, right?
Well, and
so
what's
all
perfect
of that
is
matters,
that
right?
You brought that moment with the team back up at the perfect time, because here's the next quote: if you don't believe in yourself, how will somebody else believe in you?
Back to pride. How do you handle yourself? How do you show up?
Right. And he said to that room, if you don't believe in yourself, get out. Because if you don't believe in yourself, I'm not going to believe in you. If you're not coming in here confident, ready to play, ready to strut, if you don't come with that type of belief system in yourself, how can somebody else believe in you? How can they promote you? How can they do business with you? How can they recruit you? How can they support you? How can they share there are opportunities with you. If you don't believe in yourself, how will somebody else believe in you? Right? It's a great quote.
Great quote. And he has a lot of great quotes. That's another thing. He's always been a quote guy. He's always been a guy who plants words, and words matter, right? Words are very powerful. They can be used for good or they can be used for bad. Somebody once told me words are like weapons. They can be used as good or they can be used for bad. And he uses them a lot for good. And he uses them to stoke motivation and stoke the other team. He got under the Colorado State coach's skin with a couple comments.
And the Nebraska rule was going at him in the media, and then they spanked him.
Really?
And it was really interesting. I saved one of my favorite Deion quotes for last. Has nothing to do with team or business. When Deion Sanders showed up on a private jet, which he obviously wouldn't have paid for, to the combine for college. I remember this.
Yes.
Do you remember what he ran his 40 in?
It was like a 4.27 or something.
4.27, 40-yard dash in a time where athletes like now.
No, nobody was running below 4.4 at that time.
No, like Tyreek Hill, who's just a freak show
Today
now.
He'll run that, yeah.
He'll run that, but we're talking about what, 30 years ago?
90s, in the 90s.
The athletes weren't at that level at the time. He came off the plane, he walked onto the field, he put his cleats on, and he ran it without any stretching or warm up whatsoever. And they said to him, "Why wouldn't you stretch?" And his response was, "Have you ever seen a cheetah stretch?"
He said that. That's incredible. I remember the private jet thing in the 40 thing, but not that point. That was pretty good.
Like the guy has been a walking soundbite of confidence and attention and attraction his whole life.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. Now let's pivot to how this matters to our viewers. It's a sales show. Deion is obviously selling the college football world on his style of coaching can work and get results. And I hope they win every game. I hope because of what he's done. I hope they're ranked top 10, top 5, whatever. I hope they get a bowl game. It's just going to light the whole college football world on fire. I'm a bigger college football fan than an NFL fan personally. So I love seeing it. I love what he's done. But let's talk about personality, right? So again, a lot of coaches, and we could say coaches could be CEOs. We're seeing this in the political arena right now with a lot of big personalities coming to the table pre-2024. Vivek Ramaswamy comes to mind as a massive personality, Deion style, young guy, well-spoken, and he has those one-liners, those little quotes. He's got them all the time, every day. I think he's even overboard sometimes with his little cliches and whatnot. But guess what? The cliches are catchy. Sometimes they're a little too cliche and memorable. But again, you and I are language experts. We're linguistic experts. When we're in the sales and marketing space, as long as we are, in consulting clients and ourselves and our businesses, as long as we are, we understand language really well. We understand how it works to persuade and how it works to manipulate. There's a good way and a bad way. And he's doing it in a really interesting way right now. But let's pivot to business, right? So when there's a big personality in business, so Elon Musk comes to mind as a big personality in Tesla, now with Twitter or X or whatever the heck they call it. Steve Jobs was a big personality. Yeah. Maybe not eccentric and outspoken, but he had a way about him that was memorable. He wore his black shirt uniform, and he had a certain way that he did things, and he was very serious, and he was also known. Walt Disney back in the day, if you study history.
Funny you said Walt. I was going to say Walt.
Walt Disney was another eccentric guy.
How about Richard Branson?
Branson, too. I mean, you could look at Trump in politics, regardless of his drama today. But before all that, he was a big personality. In business, big branding guy, very much like Deion. His name had to be on anything, on everything. That got him big licensing deals. Huge. Most developers wouldn't have got those deals without the big personality to drive those deals.
Let's be honest, that his name recognition is what got him the presidency of the United States.
He would have been nothing. He's not just going to show up on a ticket as a businessman. It's because and then he did the TV show. Remember the
10 years
The Apprentice?
10 years, bro.
So who would go do a TV show? Not many people, but it gets great publicity, right? So you can look at a lot of, love him or hate him, doesn't matter. You can look at a lot of different people. Forget the messenger, just focus on the messaging. Right? And think about how did they inject personality into the business. Now, when I was learning copywriting early on, Aaron, you and I go back a long way, and Dan Kennedy was really probably my best mentor when it came to copywriting. He always said, you've got to have personality in copy. It's the number one thing. You have to make it, you have to humanize it. Right? I was doing an event last week talking to our certified partners or affiliates at an event. And I said, every landing page, every website you build, every marketing campaign you build, you will see a 2, 3, 4, 5x to 1 return if you humanize it and you inject personality into it, and you make it about a person, not about a company. People buy from people. They don't buy from companies 5, 10x to 1. This is all Deion is doing, is he's injecting personality into the college football realm. But we're a business show, and you should look at your business or your brand and say, hey, how much of this humanization, how much of this personality, how much controversy am I adding into the space here? Because that's an element too, like it or hate it. If you're not controversial to some degree, and you're not throwing some stones to some degree, you're just playing it safe, and you're probably going to get very average results with anything.
You know that one of my favorite quotes is from Simon Sinek, that your goal, your job is not to do business with everybody, it's to do business with people who believe what you believe. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're trying to push your business through the competitive noise, one of the best things to do is to talk about what you believe. That's what Deion Sanders is doing. Yes. He's not just throwing stuff out there. He's talking about what he believes. I believe we can be this. I believe we can accomplish this. I believe if we do it this way.
Get on my back. Jordan did it too. Get on my back. Brady did it too.
I believe. Yeah. Right. You know, and Simon says it's why it wasn't. Never mind. We'll skip that. The reality is that when you create a little bit of controversy by talking about what you believe, especially in a time over the last 5 years where the pendulum has swung too far one way and nobody wants to talk about what they believe. They just want to talk about, what's safe and what's okay and what's not going to cause any controversy. Mm-hmm. When you talk about what you believe, because there's a gap in the marketplace right now for that, people are very attracted. Yes. Are you going to repel some people?
That's a really good point. Right.
But you don't want to do business with those people because they don't believe what you believe. So who cares?
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point you make, Aaron, because you're right. The void is bigger than it's ever been because of this whole cancel culture thing going on. So now so what does that do? That creates an opening more for a guy like Deion, or more for somebody who speaks up, because now most people are like, is it worth me saying this? But hey, if he says it for me, I feel pretty good, and
I'll get on the bandwagon with him, right?
Right.
And so you don't have to do anything, but the person who actually, in my opinion, laid the groundwork for this strategy many, many decades ago was Muhammad Ali.
Yes, he was much like this too.
Right? Muhammad Ali came out and he talked about what he believed. I believe I'm the greatest. I believe I'm going to knock him out in one round. I believe he's too slow for me. I believe he doesn't have the skills. I believe this. I believe I'm the greatest. And you've seen people take his quotes, take his style, and to a degree be very successful with implementing that. A great example is Conor McGregor from the UFC. Conor McGregor went from being on welfare to being to talking his way into $100 million fight with the greatest boxer in history, Floyd Mayweather.
Really good analogy too. Yeah.
And the key here is that you have to talk about what you believe. You have to be bold. You have to be a little controversial, but you also have to back it up with results. And in the times where you slip, you have to be honest. You have to admit it. You have to say, I missed the mark here and here's why. But you can't just shirk away. Now you got to double down on the resurrection, and you go and you go and you go. And those people are so attractive to clients, to partners, to other businesses, because inside they're like, man,
he's saying all the things I wish I could say.
Right. I want to be like this person, and maybe I just don't feel like I can. But I'm going to follow them because I just respect their conviction so much.
Yeah,
right.
Look at the Conor McGregor example. He never would have got that fight if he wasn't an eccentric personality.
No chance.
That was a $30 million purse for him. He never would have got that fight if he wasn't a Deion style personality.
The 5 highest grossing pay-per-views in the UFC in history are all his fights.
See, there you go. He got it from being a big talker and doing all the things Deion is doing, right?
Absolutely, right? And you can look at Trump did it. Elon does it. They all commit to what they believe, and they double down because they do believe what they're doing, and they own it when they're wrong for the most part. And that's,
some of them do, right? So there's there's the problem, like you said. So if you're going to play this game of big personality and big talker and challenges, and you believe, you just said it, Aaron, there's a small window to perform. And if you don't perform, you're going to have to own it. But you can't not perform for long, because then you're out.
Absolutely. That it's big upswing, big downfall.
So Deion, for example, if he goes, what are they, 3-1 right now, let's say. So if he all of a sudden goes 3-8, his demeanor sizzles a little. He'll get another shot. He can come back. He'll still be him. he'll still
but
have
if he
the
goes
swagger.
3-8,
but if they
if he
do
goes
it,
3-8,
but if they're 5-5 next year, and then if he gets a third year and they're 7-5, 7-4, whatever, it's not enough, right? It's if you're going to go big like this, you're going to have to go big with the results.
And you're going to have to do what you say and say what you do, and you're going to have to get the result, because what's going to happen is in year 3, if he's not successful, which I think is a great point you just brought up, all the haters that are piling up on the other side are going to just come like a tidal wave right over top of him. We told you he couldn't coach. He's got a big mouth.
You can't.
It's a circus.
Yep.
But
right.
So he's put this pressure on himself. He's put this bullseye on himself. And again, that's why people like to follow. They're like, man, this guy's really setting himself up for a fall. But what if he actually can do what he says he's going to do? It's very attractive.
Now, here, you're right. It's very attractive. The people who do this, they know that that's at stake. This is why I have the most amount of respect for the people like Deion, because they have the most to lose.
Yep.
That's how I know who's for real. This is how I dissect information, is I know who has the most to lose here, not who has the most to gain. Because the guy that has, or the gal that has the most to lose, that is playing this game, they are probably the bravest. And they're probably the most credible, because they're willing to take this risk and they believe so strongly in themselves, right? Somebody has a lot to gain, right? There's a lot to gain. I don't know.
I really like that you brought this point up about who has the most to lose. What I said earlier is Deion Sanders, and let's assume that the internet's correct today. It could be wrong, right? Let's assume the internet's correct and he's worth $280 million.
That's what you said in the beginning. 280. Yeah, that's an amazing
right?
number.
Let's just say it's correct. So he just signed a $29 million a year coaching contract.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So he's making $29 million a year. I don't know how long the duration is for. Let's say it was for 3 years, and let's say he totally bombs out.
God, I hope
if he totally bombs out, okay, follow me here. If he totally bombs out, it's the Colin Kaepernick effect. We don't need that big personality in our team. We don't need the media following. We don't need the disruption. We'd rather take the safer road.
Yeah, save the drama.
Deion Sanders will very likely not get another coaching job if he flames out here, because there's too much media on him right now. So for the amount of money he's getting paid, let's say he's worth $280 million and he's going to make another $100 million over the next 3 years. Your life doesn't change between 280 and 380. It doesn't. So this isn't a money play for Deion. This is a passion, impact, change the way things are done, open up new doors for people. This isn't a money thing for him. And so it's bigger than it is for the majority of other people. He has way more to lose in this scenario because he's already good on the money side. He really wants to do this.
Yeah, when I say a lot to lose, a lot of times it isn't money. It's
right.
It's the influence that he had. It's
the
opportunities
influence
that he might not have because it didn't go well, right? So there's a lot of that at play too. I love the fact that his son's the quarterback and his other son is on. I don't know if you know this.
Yep,
his son's the quarterback.
Shader.
Imagine being imagine competing for that job in summer against Deion's kid. I'd be like, I'm going to a different school. I'm not going to compete against Deion's kid. Deion's the kind of guy though that probably he truly would play the best. I think obviously human nature, we're going to favor our kid. But at the end of the day, you know who's going to win the job. You can tell by the performance. It's in front of you.
I would say that it's a very high chance that is correct. However, when the 60 Minutes interviewer turned it on him and said, what if your son had been in that room and the coach had said that to him and your son had come home and said, Dad, I quit. He said, I would have looked at him and said, well, clearly you don't have enough value to play on that team, or you don't perceive you have enough value. So maybe you should go somewhere else that's not as good of a team, or maybe you should do a better job of making yourself more valuable to the team.
Yeah.
He was very blunt. And I know that you're the same way as me. And I feel like this is, again, things have swung too far one direction, and I won't change who I am for what the general consensus in the world is at any time. My son, when he was 10 or 11, he went out to try out for a team and he got cut. And he came home and he was upset and he said, Dad, I got cut. It's because the coach likes this kid better than me and this and that. And I said, whoa. Just stop right there.
Stop with the becauses.
First off, you never play. I haven't seen you out playing on the field at school any day I've picked you up in the last year. 2, I offered you the chance to be put on a team. You didn't want to play on the team. Magically, 2 weeks ago, you decided, I want to try out for this team. And you weren't the best. You weren't the second best. You weren't the third best. You were the fourth best because there was only 4 trying out. They're all better than you because they play it every day and they care about it more than you do. Now, if you want to become the best, I will tell you what needs to happen to become the best. I will put you in a position to win, but you have to commit to me that you're willing to do all these things. And if you do, you will be the best. But you can't just walk off the street and say, and then complain and point fingers that you didn't make it. They're better than you are. And that was a conversation. My wife was mortified that I had this conversation with him. I said, son, this is life. This is a meritocracy in sports. They take the best, and the best work their butt off, and they're committed, and they're passionate, and you're not. But you can change that.
Well said, man. Too bad that wasn't the case in corporate America today. Meritocracy, like you said, that's gone. They're hiring people.
It'll come back.
I hope so, because they're just blatantly hiring people because of fill in the blank, gender, race, whatever, background. Just hire the best.
Just hire the best.
Male, female, black, yellow, green, orange. What's the difference?
You look at Kevin Harrington.
Why the push, right? Like, why the push to?
What's Mr. Wonderful's name?
Kevin O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary
from Shark Tank.
So Kevin O'Leary came out, and you can search this on Google. It's probably a year ago now. He said all companies have invested in, 60% of them right now are female founders, female CEOs. He said, I am finding that their commitment, their conviction, their ability to multitask, focus is exponentially better than the male founders, and they're all more profitable. In fact, right now, I'm doing my absolute best to hire as many females as possible and invest in as many female invested companies as possible. Kevin O'Leary is a dick, right? He says some really awful stuff to humans, but it's his truth.
He definitely does.
He doesn't
on
care.
Shark Tank once he's like, "You're dead to me." I'm like, "Did he just
absolutely
say that? That's ridiculous."
He's playing the meritocracy game, and if you're a male and you're listening to me, and you're going, "Well, that's unfair. I think I'm a better CEO than women are, and I think this and I think that." In his mind, he's employing the best, and right now the best results are coming from females, males, females. Black, white,
one of the things
Asian,
I don't
Indian, it doesn't matter.
One of the things I don't agree with him, and I think this is your point, is when you call out who you're hiring by race or gender ahead of time, because
he was just stating a fact. He was saying now.
But what he said was, and I'm now this is like I see this in politics all the time now. Like Biden did this when he took office. I'm going to hire a black female for the Supreme Court. So you just basically discriminated against all white women, all white men, all people of Hispanic. Like you just discriminated because you said it beforehand. So that means I have a problem with that. And same with Kevin O'Leary. I'm only looking for female CEOs. No, I'm looking for CEOs who do A, B, C, and D. And who cares if they're female or male?
What he was saying is that much contrary to
he's telling you what he's seeing now.
What
past
he's
tense,
seeing
that's different.
Trending in the marketplace in his own book of business.
Fair enough. This is what he's seeing.
Right? And that could have been any of the 9 different variables that you listed there. It could have been Asian males are running my business is better than any. It could have been, he said, females. This is where I'm getting the best results. This is a fact. This is what I'm looking for right now. And so, again, meritocracy, because the guy doesn't mince words. Mm-hmm. He's not playing the socially acceptable game. He's saying, guys, right now, you need to pick up your results. You need to be better because right now these females are kicking your butt, right?
Listen,
and meritocracy.
The advice you gave your son was fantastic. I'm surprised Liz was mortified. I'm surprised she wasn't.
Maybe it was because he was 10.
Maybe because he's 10. My son's 12. Yeah. And same thing with my son. He's getting into basketball right now. And I said the same thing. You got to train off. You can't just show up for practice.
Absolutely.
So now we understand preparation is part of the deal now, and he's actually enjoying the preparation. Your advice was perfect. I wish more parents today would give that advice and not feel like it's too tough, because that's the advice they need in the real world today. The lack of toughness and the lack of building that mental muscle is a big problem today.
And I think much like Deion, it comes from a place of wanting the best for his athletes. I want the best for my kids. I
actually think you're kind of a phony if you don't have that conversation. You're basically not. You're not giving the kid the. This is what Deion said in one of his quotes too. In a world of so much damn lying, I'm bringing the truth to these kids. He said something along those lines. It's what you did with your son.
Absolutely.
You're not serving your son, and he's not serving the team by telling them what they want to hear. And like the guy on 60 Minutes, I have to push back here, Deion. I have to push back here. What you said to those kids, give me a break. What he said to those kids, he served every one of them in the room.
Absolutely.
He served them by giving them a chance to be great or giving them a chance to go somewhere where they don't want to be great. It's very simple.
Graciously. You could step up or you can exit graciously.
He didn't kick anyone out. He didn't fire anybody. He invited them to be part of the journey, or he invited them respectfully to leave the program. That isn't some tough, extreme statement. It's just the way it's supposed to be. Man, I miss the 80s and 90s when, well, really more the 80s. The 90s, 80s and 90s. But the 80s when we grew up, our age demographic, that's pretty much how every coach talked.
No question.
Yeah, it's just really a weird dynamic today with what's going on. So it's good that you said that to your son. It's good that Deion's having the tough conversations. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, sales professional, and you manage people, the question is, how do you do it? Do you do it softly because you don't want to offend anybody? Do you inject personality? I mean, you and I are say it like it is kind of guys. I don't care. This is, at least where I am is America. This is, I say it's a free speech. This is a free speech country. But that's no longer the case. It actually is completely the opposite now. But we as humans should always be able to say what we feel. And if it offends some, fine. If it doesn't offend some, that's fine too. The person is an adult and they can defend themselves. And as long as it isn't some sort of, some sort of hate speech or something very dangerous or whatever, right? It should just be handled the way it's handled. I mean, we shouldn't be policing people's demeanors and speeches and belief systems. That's really becoming a dangerous trend that I'm seeing.
Don't allow my confidence to impact your insecurity.
Yeah, it wasn't impact though. He said something.
It wasn't. It was something else.
Don't allow my confidence to get in the way of your insecurity is what I think it might
Jamie,
have been.
Jamie, search it up. Jamie, search it up,
man.
Jamie, search it up right now.
But yeah, this was a good one, Aaron. I know we're big sports guys, so maybe for some you're like, oh, well, I don't really know what's going on. Well, just take a peek, right? Take a peek at what Deion Sanders is doing with the University of Colorado, how he's injecting personality and culture into that organization. That's really the big takeaway. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. Success leaves clues. There's a lot of lessons to be learned by the people who are doing things really big and breaking a lot of things, and maybe it isn't always what you like or what you believe, but there's lessons to be taken from people who are making the most noise.
Don't allow my confidence to offend your insecurity.
Offend. Yes.
That was the quote.
And it was great. Wasn't that great? It was great. So, hey, we hope you enjoyed this. We unpacked Deion Sanders today, and we'll pivot to more shows like this periodically as we're slowly, Aaron, gearing up towards a complete rebrand of the show where we'll be having mostly conversations like this. Stay tuned for that. We'll see you in next week's episode. I'm Andrew. That's Aaron. This one's a wrap.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Sales Velocity TV is powered by Pipeline Pro, the ultimate all-in-one sales pipeline management and marketing automation platform that makes all others obsolete. And we can prove it. Take a tour at gopipelinePro.com. See you on the next episode.